Ladies and gents, I'm going to go over the 5 homework problems that I sent you back in week 2 on factoring by pulling out the greatest common factor. Okay, so here is your first one on the worksheet. It was 12x plus 20. So remember, what I want to do is understand that this is kind of distributive property in reverse. So what did it look like? So I'm going to have that line, so I'm going to have a number outside of the parentheses, and then because there's 2 terms here, there'll be 2 terms inside of the parentheses. Remember, what goes here is your greatest common factor of these 2. So the first thing I do is look at the numbers, 12 and 20. The greatest common factor of 12 and 20 is 4. Then I look at the variables. There's an x here, but there's no variable here, so I cannot pull an x out of both of these. So I'm done with the 4. Then remember, to get what goes here, it's division. I'm going to take 12x divided by the greatest common factor of 4. 12x divided by 4 is 3x. Then I'm going to take the second term divided by our greatest common factor, which is 20 divided by 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So that would be our final answer. Okay? Some of you, when I looked over your homework, you pulled out a 2. So you pulled out a common factor, but it wasn't the greatest common factor. Some of you also pulled out an x. You can't do that because there's not an x in both of these, okay? That would be like trying to pull a 3 out. Well, you can't take 20 divided by 3, so you can't pull a 3 out of this. So make sure that it's a common factor and the greatest common factor, and then just pure division to get what's left, okay? Number 2 was a little different because it had 3 terms, but the process is still the same. I'm going to have a greatest common factor outside the parentheses, and what's left is going to be 3 terms. Now I'm going to put a minus sign here, addition and minus, okay, subtraction. So now I have to look at all 3 terms and pull out the greatest common factor. So I'm going to look at the numbers first. The greatest common factor of 4, 12, and 28 is 4. Now I'm going to look at the variables. Here's an x squared, here's an x. This doesn't have a variable, so I can't pull a variable out. So now it's just division. Okay, and I'm not going to write it out this time. You certainly can on every problem. 4x squared divided by 4 is just x squared. 12x divided by 4 is 3x, and 28 divided by 4 is 7. So that would be my final answer for that one, and we'd be done. Okay, number 3 was another 3-termer, and this one is a little different because the coefficient here is 1. We don't see a number, so it's 1. So again, greatest common factor, 3 terms, and my subtraction and addition and subtraction signs line up. So there is no greatest common factor of the numbers because there's not a number here. I could put a 1 here, but we don't need a 1. Okay? So now I look at the variables. There's an a to the third, an a squared, and an a. Can I pull an a to the third out of all of these? No, this only has 2 a's and this only has 1. I can't pull 3 out of something that only has 2 and 1. So I can pull an a out of here, an a out of here, and an a out of here. So my greatest common factor is just a. Then I divide. If I have 3 a's being multiplied and I divide one of them out, I'm going to be left with 2 a's being multiplied. So that's a squared, not 2a, a squared. Okay? So 6a squared divided by a is 6a, and 11a divided by a is 11. And that would be my final answer. Okay, number 4, again, is a 3-termer. That's a subtraction sign first, and then an addition sign second. Again, I look at the numbers. 14, 2, and 8, the greatest common factor is 2. Now I look at the variables. X to the third, x squared, and x. I can pull an x out. Okay, 14 divided by 2 is 7. X to the third divided by x is x squared. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I can put a 1 there, but I'm not going to. And x squared divided by x is just x. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and these x's, if I line those up, would cancel. So 8 divided by 2 is 4, and that's all I have. So there's my final answer on that one. Finally, we're back to 2 terms, but there's a couple more variables, isn't there? But the process is the same. So I have my greatest common factor and then my 2 terms in there, and it's a subtraction sign. So I'm going to look at the numbers first. The greatest common factor of 9 and 27 is 9. Now I'm going to look at my m's, just the m's. I'm not going to look at all the variables, just the m's. Here's 4 of them, here's 2 of them. The most I can pull out is 2. Okay, 1 is not the greatest common factor because there's 2 here and 4 here. So the most I can pull out is 2. So that's an m squared. And then when I look at the n's, there's an n to the 5th and an n to the 3rd. I can take 3 n's away from 5 of them. So I'm going to pull out n to the 3rd. Now I divide. This is one that I like to write it because there's a little more going on here. So my first term divided by my greatest common factor. The n's cancel. Keep the base, subtract the exponents. That'll be m squared. Keep the base, subtract the exponents. That'll be n squared. Over here, 27 m squared n to the 3rd over 9 m squared n to the 3rd. 27 divided by 9 is 3. M squared and m squared will cancel. N to the 3rd will cancel. So that is my final answer.